I went to Johns Hopkins, I went to UPenn, and I've ghostwritten college apps for over 1,150 clients. I'll be reading a personal statement that got somebody into Harvard, analyzing why it works throughout, and at the end, without any further ado, let's get started. So this person's name is Claire. She writes, in my vision, I focus on a lone front tooth backdropped by a black abyss. Thin lips dance around it in motions forming words, yet I can't seem to hear them. So right away, the hook leaves the reader wondering, what is this lone front tooth she's talking about? What are these these thin lips dancing around it? Like, it leaves the reader wondering, which is very important. Then she goes on. In the kitchen behind my grandfather sits his definition of luxury, a now stale and cold Filet-O-Fish from the Beijing McDonald's. American basketball plays on the television across from where we're sitting on the sofa. Players' shoes squeak and balls bounce louder in my ears than those words. So right away, very unique word choice. You want to get into the unique word choice. Very descriptive, taking the reader directly into the heart of the scene with all the little sensory details happening around her. Very specific, very detailed, very important. In this moment, his Mandarin goes in one ear and out the other. I don't listen the way I do when he's screaming at my mother, a bitter, blind rage fueled by undercurrents of fear and I miss you. So first off, using fear and I miss you as as part of the undercurrents, it's like an apples to oranges comparison, because it's not fear and longing, it's fear and I miss you, which is a unique word choice, using an exact phrase as the emotion. Very creative literary tactic. And then also, the emotions are articulated in a way that's unconventional, which is helpful. She goes on and says, my focus blurs and the tooth disappears. Basketball fades to silence and I'm on the airplane home to America. We're separated once more by an ocean and 3,000 unspoken miles. It's a whirlwind. 5 years pass and my few apathetic summers in China are over before I can blink twice. The last clear memory I have is waking up on my 13th birthday to my dad handing me the landline kept for international phone calls. Wai Gong has something he wants to read to you. It is a poem he had written about me. Through the phone, I could do nothing but hear his voice, static worsening than the Mandarin, already slurred by missing teeth. The poem says everything he loved about his granddaughter, everything he saw in her, despite barely knowing her. It is a reflection of last dreams, visions, and hopes of his own. He was gone not long after that, once more turned to forever. So look at the way that she portrays loss. That's such a unique way to portray it, and a micro moment that encapsulates how she's feeling about it all. You want to do the micro moments that encapsulate the overall ethos. And then she goes, it wasn't until I found myself chancely entrenched in poetry because of a mandatory school competition that I began to think deeply about that disconnected relationship. Poetry Out Loud's anthology introduced me to hundreds and hundreds of poems, and I felt like a hungry child at a buffet. When I discovered Old Men Playing Basketball by B.H. Fairchild, I saw tired arms and shaky hands as pure geometry of curves, hobbling slippers as the adamant remains of that old soft shoe of desire. In words, I was safe to miss my grandfather for all the things that made him human. For the first time in my life, I began to realize that I might have a love for beautiful words that ran deep in my blood, a love that couldn't be lost in translation. So she's assessing the genetic or familial hereditary components of poetry. On that makeshift podium in the school cafeteria my sophomore year, Old Men Playing Basketball becomes Wai Gong Playing Basketball. I'm back to that sofa in Beijing one more time, where he takes my small hand into his tremoring, once covered by gray-brown patches of melasma, where he tells me, you are a gift, a wonder. You are a hu di, which is butterfly in Chinese, born to one day fly. But it is no longer his voice I hear. It is my own, crisp and clear, raw and strong. The poem becomes the glass wand of autumn light breaking over the backboard, where boys rise up in old men. I see the whole scene this time, not just the tooth and abyss. I hear every word. Perhaps I will never be able to know my grandfather beyond his love of basketball and poetry, or hear his voice read me another poem. But when I'm stirred by beautiful lines or liberated by my pen on paper, I know I am one of two same hearts, forever bound together by the permanence and power of language. So while she's using abstract concepts, the permanence and power of language as a binding force between her and her grandfather, and that motivates her and fuels her to continue pursuing it for the psychological benefits that it brings her, and self-expression, etc. She goes, I am a vessel in flight, listening, writing, speaking to remember histories, to feel emotion, to carry forth dreams and visions and hopes of my own. My grandfather becomes an elegant mirage of a basketball player, carried by a quiet grace along my trail of spoken words floating upward towards heaven. So some essays, they tell you who someone is, but Clara's over here shows you how she became that person. That how is incredibly important because it's a personal statement. Like I said, it's not a resume. So you want to show like your journey of how you got to the point of your current interests, of your current goals, your passions. What were the specific steps along that journey that changed your mind, that made you feel a certain type of way about something? Yeah, this was essentially perfect, and that's why she got into Harvard. Anyways, follow for more tips. If you need your essays ghostwritten, you know exactly who to call. The guy with the 99.5% client satisfaction rating. Thank you very much.